I'm traveling to a place that shows the terrifying power of climate change. I'm going to visit the north of my country, where hundreds of thousands of families have lost their homes in floods. Climate change driven by fossil fuel use has increased the risk of flooding across the world. I've heard oil pollution in the area is making a bad situation even worse.
The oil in the environment and in contact with the human being is a silent killer. So with this flood right now, it is a disaster.
You can see the flooding waters here. Look at the water and look at the countryside. The only thing that's supporting those people is this long water dike. Keep them dry and safe. I've managed to get rare access to the area to try to see what's really going on. This is part of Unity State before the floods and after. In 2019, extreme flooding began. At the flood's peak in 2022, up to 70% of Unity State was underwater. More than 700,000 people have been affected across the country. Tens of thousands moved into Bentiu camp. Today I'm meeting a village elder called Nyakuma in camp. She's agreed to show us her flooded home. South Sudan has always had some flooding in the wet season, but it's becoming more extreme every year. It's now the end of the dry season, and the water's still here. Tamam, pilot? The Nuer people of this area have always kept cattle, but the floods have changed everything. I'm not saying that. Okay. We made it, yes. Finally. This is Yakuma's house. Mush? Vale. See the way. Kef. Tamam. Alhamdulillah. Without cattle and with crops underwater, food is scarce. Nyakuma and her family have no choice but to forage for food like the edible roots of water lilies. Sunday, Nyakuma and their daughter Nyariak invite me to join their hard-won meal. Nyakuma, cham. The flood waters harbor diseases. Nyakuma has recently recovered from malaria.
It's no wonder so many have moved into Bentiu camp. It's run by the United Nations and houses 140,000 people displaced by war and now by climate change. The floods have hit our country when we are very vulnerable. South Sudan was founded only 13 years ago. After decades of civil war, we hoped for peace, but fighting continues in many areas. The nation's poor and the government depends almost entirely on oil for income. The country's oil fields, including in Unity State, can produce crude oil worth approximately 9 million pounds sterling a day. The BBC has spoken to David Bojo-Leju, formerly a senior engineer for GPOC, an oil consortium in Unity State.
I got a job with the Greater Pioneer Operating Company, GPOC, as construction supervisor in the 5 fields of Unity State. Nothing can go without us knowing the oil field.
GPOC runs the Unity State oil field. It's a joint venture between Malaysian, Indian, and Chinese oil companies with South Sudan's government owning 5%. David alleges that GPOC mismanages facilities, polluting the environment. He shared videos he recorded when he worked there.
I was employed into an environment where there is an existing pollution. I had witnessed wells spilling out. Oil spill is a recurring situation.
He says GPOC's infrastructure is old and unsafe.
Oil spills from the wells itself, well heads. Oil spills from wells connecting other pipe connecting other wells. Oil spills from the main export pipeline that had happened in a big quantity in 2019 and 2020. Lot of oil all over still. This oil exists for over 4 months still. It's an area near drinking sources for the community around. Been cultivating that site and all over that side of the road.
David left GPOC in 2020 after 8 years. He says the pollution he saw was never cleared up and is more dangerous now than ever.
So with this flood right now, it is a disaster. The whole of that contaminated soil with the hydrocarbon is going to be flooded all over Unity State. I feel the effect of the oil in the environment and in contact with the human being is a silent killer. What of the cattle that roam around the oil field drinking water in those sources? Where do we see the end result of hydrocarbon? This is a contaminated water with the oil, and you see the color. This water is covering kilometers of areas.
Over 117,000 cows have died in Unity State in the last 2 years, according to the state's Minister of Agriculture, who blames it on flooding and oil pollution. He called on central government to investigate. David thinks that livestock and people are likely to be affected by the oil spills he saw, which may have seeped into the groundwater.
The water table is contaminated. If a sample of water is to be measured in several boreholes in Unity State, definitely majority of the borehole have unclean water. It's because the environment is polluted. Some of the oil chemicals seeped down. It is carried by the water, the flood, and others seep down into the ground. This is the untold and exposed environmental damage.
David says there is another factor polluting the area. wastewater from oil production that was improperly treated.
Oil is separated from water. Oil goes to the storage tank. The water separated has to be pumped back to the environment. This is the point. Water is received here. This water come and there are different sections of the ponds. Every day in our morning meeting in Jipo, there are reports of high content of oil in the produced water, which is not in conformity to international standard. And this water is injected back to the environment. The question is, where does water flow? Up to the people, up to the river, up to the water source where people drink, up to ponds where people catch fish, up to ponds where people swim. Who knows the amount of hydrocarbon in those water?
To find out more about the impact of the oil pollution on communities, I'm on my way to Roriak, a settlement 20 kilometers north of Bentiu and right in the heart of the oil fields. Esse moe fi beja? Moe na nadi?
Ma nazi. Kare ne wa fa ko wa da mata ko tinne. Take ja. Take kama ko.
I meet more families living near the oil facilities.
Yala buat ini jambi mahal ka chemical na mahal.
The mothers say they want to stay here because there is a school nearby.
هل أفكار كتير قبل في راسك تخاف كلام مويه؟
ما بيجي كتير مغامرة بيجي كان ما بيجي كتير كل يوم ها كان ما أنا كان بيجي ما بيجي بيجي
جوها
أنت خايف؟ بالك تيجي نقول وانا قام تبدينا قام يجيو كنا يدفعوا
Ne tinne ka ta bani wannan. Kin ga ka manu ne kan manu tinne. Manu ne ko wada ra ta da geje. Loke ma ga tinne.
A German NGO, Sign of Hope, conducted 2 peer-reviewed studies of communities living near oil fields in Unity State. They found high sulfate content in the water and heavy metals in human hair samples. These are indicators of oil pollution and could increase the risk of birth defects. The NGO told the BBC that government officials said their work went against government interests. Under pressure, they withdrew their staff because of security concerns. Off camera, someone shows me a picture of a baby with birth defects who died here.
Ne dan tinne te ta ra to do ra. Ne shiwo ta ga betero. Shiwo ba ta ga fiu. Kan fi shara ba liyon kai ka kamar nan ta rage betero. Kan gat ba ga dies tinye. Ba ga dies she ga re da ne ta yo. Ne da ne shi ga to ta ta na. Me cha ka gwar tin. Ko na mai ka balla mu ka gelwa.
What the chief tells me about the birth defects is really worrying, and I need to find out more. So I go to visit the hospital in Bentiu. The doctor takes me to meet a mother and her newborn baby.
Ada lingi di mau gilong, ti garame nana. Taban mau gitu long. Oh, siapa taban? Bây giờ cha là
Đó không biết cái chào mấy giờ trời mấy chào thì chứ không cái gì
those people they have oil in the area. That's a place called Mal. Those people are opposed also to oil like Polish. Okay.
The hospital doesn't have the facilities to do genetic tests, and it's rarely possible to know for certain the cause of any genetic abnormality in a child. But the doctor thinks pollution might be a factor.
This woman come due to problem of oil. Okay. There is to rupture. This pipeline is to rupture, and those people have no access to clean water. They just drink from the river, where the river water and oil are mixed. That might be the problem.
Outside the ward, the doctor tells me he has seen many similar cases.
People born with no limb. People who born with small head. Yes. Our environment is polluted by oil. Okay. The water must make waste with the oil. If this water are not treated well, they will cause also abnormality, genetical abnormality. Okay.
He tells me he's been trying to keep track of cases of babies born with birth defects. He wants the government to keep a proper register of babies with genetic problems and investigate the causes.
What pains me much is the local that stay around, the effect that the community complain about their birth defects.
Hundreds of thousands of barrels got spilled in this area.
David says he challenged his managers, but he says they didn't try to clean up the oil-polluted soil, merely told him to contain and hide the problem.
Contaminate soil with pure oil. They are black, as you see, is totally black. Because it is collected at the roadside, the company say we have to take away because it's giving a very bad image to the company. So this soil, huge mountain of soil here, were transported and put here, hidden here in this location. There is no treatment plan for soil. There's nothing called treating soil in Unity State. No.
Many people do not know what is happening here.
David says when the extreme rainfall started in 2019, they tried and failed to keep the pollution from getting into the flood water.
The whole area is watery, and this soil mixed with the water. The hydrocarbons seep to the water, and this water is spreaded all over Unity.
I've learned village elder Nyakuma and her family have had to leave their village to stay in her brother's hut near the camp. They've come because Nyakuma is sick. They suspect her malaria is back.
Nyakuma, صباح الخير. كيف؟ تمام. جسم كيف؟ جسم كيف؟ ده شنو؟ تجي في مويه؟ عشان كده قاعد تكون عيان. هسه جسم سخن ولا بارد؟ ما في ملاية تغطي؟
outside. It's quite terrible. I ran to my container. My mind is still busy about people outside there. How are they managing, especially Nyakuma? She's been sick and the rain is just really, really strong. At least the container is keeping me safe. But thousands of displaced persons outside there, they're just stuck under their poor shelter. And the water level also it's rising. Coming all the way this side, interacting with the people, especially women and children, it's a different world. It's catastrophic. David and his family have been forced into exile in Sweden. In 2020, David shared his evidence of pollution with South Sudanese lawyers who wanted to take legal action over oil pollution in Unity State.
I was contacted by someone who was preparing to sue the government because of these environmental pollutions, because of the pain that I have for a long period of time and what I see happening in the oil field affecting the people and the environment. I had to come in to provide the evidence to the court. I was not against the government, so I was sure I would be protected as a witness. But one day, a flight was sent when I was in the oil field in Unity State. Without my notice, a security personnel who is also working in the oil field told me, pick your bag, you asked to go to Juba. The government needs me to answer questions about the oil case. The security personnel who were near me hit my head with the pistol and forced me to sign this document without saying anything.
The lawyers have not pursued the case for pollution against the government.
Killings is not something new in South Sudan, it is daily. Do you think it would be very difficult for me to be disappeared? My life can easily be disappeared. The government feel anyone talk about the oil is touching the heart of the government. I had to seek for asylum and I was given an asylum to Sweden. My spirit always tied back home and I miss it so much.
Nyakuma has recovered from her bout of malaria. She's determined to go home as soon as she's strong enough. I'm back to Juba. The next plan is to meet the first Deputy Speaker for the Council of Estates, Honorable Mary Ayen. She will tell me more about the facts that are happening in the northern part of the country. Mary Ayen is a senior politician from the ruling party, from an oil-producing area. She's been raising concerns about children with birth defects with central government and thinks there could be many more cases.
I've seen myself, my own relatives, giving birth to children born with deformities. I know that also in most of the villages, it's only areas that are around hospital where those cases are reported, but most cases are not reported. This is one child, this is the other one, they are twins. So they were born in Parian Hospital, actually that was last April. There are so many cases, but this year all of them died except this one. This child is still alive. It was born in Pamir, in Jamjam, Roe.
Mary says after mounting pressure, the government launched an environmental audit last year.
So samples from the human bloods, from their hair, from soil, from water were taken and sent to laboratories. And when it was launched, the government declared that the results will come out in 90 days. And I think that was last September.
In August 2024, Petronas, part of the GPOC oil consortium in Unity State, announced it was pulling out of South Sudan. The government is blocking it from selling its assets, saying they are legally obliged to pay for an environmental cleanup first. Meanwhile, the government still has not released any environmental audits of the area.
The government had said they will produce an audit report in 1 year. Where has the 1 year ended? Why are they delaying in publishing the audit report? Why? And time will come, all these wells will dry off. Chinese will leave, Indian will leave, Petronas has left. What have they left with South Sudanese now? A cry. Money come, money go, but life is more precious. The environment will never come and go again. The environment is there permanent.
I feel like the situation in Unity State is a nightmare I can't forget, an environmental crisis of climate change and pollution. The people there don't have real information. The government hasn't yet released an environmental audit. There is no register of birth defects. They are left with so many questions, but no answers, and nowhere else to go.